Dear students, today we are going to see a very interesting topic on Braille signs and symbols, Hindi and regional language. The Braille system is a method that is used by visually impaired people to read and write, which is invented in 1825 by Louis Braille. The unsighted community has been extensively using the Braille code system as it is comfortable for them to use it for reading and writing. Accordingly, diverse countries have adopted their individual Braille symbolization to constitute their native vernaculars. Bharati Braille is the adaptation of the six-dot system for the languages of India. The history of Bharati Braille dates back to the period prior to India's independence. Schools for the blind had already been established in the country during the later part of the 19th century, and Braille had found acceptance as an appropriate medium for educating the blind. The complexities of the writing system of Indian languages had somewhat hindered the development of Braille specific to the Indian environment. It is interesting to observe here that Braille can be viewed as a script for writing a language. Indian languages are based on a writing system which is essentially phonetic in nature. Hence, some scholars had recommended Braille as one of the scripts that could be used for writing text in the different Indian languages. In fact, India had made a recommendation to UNESCO to consider a universal standard for Braille based on a phonetic representation of sounds using the six-dot system. At a conference held in Buret in 1951, a body of world scholars examined the possibility of a phonetically derived system of six dots that could be used for most of the languages of India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Bharati Braille was the result of this exercise. The languages of India are phonetic in nature in that the writing system employed is based on the sound produced by the consonants and vowels. In almost all the scripts used for Indian languages, the written shapes correspond to syllables which may be just a vowel, a consonant-vowel combination or a series of consonants and vowels. In practice, children in India are taught to recognize more than 10,000 individual shapes. Surprisingly, all these shapes could be derived from a much smaller set of shapes, and in practice, about 200 letters and ligatures would be adequate to represent more than 14,000 syllables in common use. This idea was the basis of translation where Roman letters with specific diacritics marks, for example, symbols written above or below a letter, are used to written text in Indian languages. Roman translation had been in use for many years, and the idea behind Bharati Braille was to use the 63 cell as a special script to represent text uniformly in all the Indian languages. Look at the languages and the writing system of India. Up to 16 vowels are required along with about 37 consonants. This is almost all the cells available to us in the six-dot system if the set apart line 5 for retaining the punctuation marks. In Bharati Braille, almost all the cells are required to represent the basic letters used in the writing system of the country. Interestingly, since all the languages are based on a common phonetic system, Bharati Braille would be applicable to each language if the consonant and vowel used include the consonant and vowel across all languages. Let us discuss about uniform scheme for all Indian languages. It turns out that Bharati Braille achieves this uniformity in remarkable way, and the recommendations apply to all the regional languages of India along with Urdu and Sinhalese. The basic idea behind Bharati Braille is the six-dot system is viewed as another script to write the language of India. The compromise effected is that a syllable will always be represented through its consonants and vowels by explicitly writing the consonants and vowels one after the other. Ligature are therefore eliminated. True, this would mean that more cells would be required, but considering the fact that one gets uniformity and grade 1 Braille in English also follows this convention, the system is indeed viable. Bharati Braille assigns the cells to the basic sounds of the Indian languages. These are called aksharas in a manner where vowels and consonants that find direct equivalence in English are given the same representation as in English. This way, with minimal effort, one would able to read both English text and the Indian language text. This arrangement is essential if the visually handicapped are required to communicate with their counterparts in other countries. Bharati Braille retains all the basic conventions relating to the representation of the numerals, punctuation and special symbols, just as in standard English Braille. There are no concepts in Bharati Braille like the lines in English Braille. One has to necessarily learn the cell assignment for the different vowels and consonants, and hence the initial period of training has to be prolonged. Another point to keep in mind is that since all the Indian languages share the same Braille representation, it will be difficult to identify when a language switch is occurring in multilingual texts. This issue is still being examined, and possibly one of the cells might be used to indicate a change of context. But for most persons, bilingual text would be adequate, where one of the languages will be English and the context would be sensed from the text itself. If needed, text in different languages may always put on separate lines on a printed page of Braille. Let us see about the assignments of the cells to the aksharas of Indian languages. The aksharas of Indian languages are divided into vowels and consonants. Across the many different languages of the country, one finds up to 16 vowels and about 40 consonants. The assignments of the cells is therefore applicable across all the languages, though it must be stated that a few cells have to be interpreted based on the language. This is a consequence of the fact that we have only 63 cells available to us and reserving 10 cells for punctuations, leaving us in a tight situation. Across the languages, 15 vowels and 33 consonants are common, with the exception of Tamil, and so the basic assignments of Bharati Braille corresponds to these. Let us see about the Hindi letters. For letter A, dot 1 is punctuated. For letter K, dots 1 and 3 is punctuated. For letter H, dots 3, 4, 5 will be punctuated. Likewise, all other letters are punctuated with all these 6 letter combinations. Let us see the basic rules in preparing Bharati Braille. In the grade 1 equivalent of Bharati Braille, a syllable is written by breaking it into its consonants and vowels, and the cells corresponding to each consonant and vowel are put in the same sequence of letters found in the syllable. One might remember here that the structure of a syllable in Indian languages. Normally, a pure vowel will not follow a consonant and will appear only at the beginning of a word. However, there are many exceptions to this rule. Bharati Braille assigns an individual cell to each vowel and a basic syllable consisting of a consonant with vowel ha. A syllable made up of a consonant and any other vowel is assigned the cells for the consonant and the corresponding vowel in the syllable. The cell for the consonant comes first and is followed by the cell for the vowel. This assignment is almost similar to what one would find in English. A syllable made up of more than one consonant is assigned cells. A special cell is assigned to denote that consonant following the cell is without a vowel. This special assignment is known as the halant, which in Indian scripts is a symbol attached to the shape of the consonant to indicate that it is the pure consonant without any vowel. Thus, syllable with two consonants and a vowel will be assigned to the cell as halant, constant, constant and vowel. Similarly, syllables with more than two consonants will be assigned halant consonant 1, halant consonant 2 like that, and final consonant vowel. If the vowel in the syllable is the first vowel ha, the cell for the vowel is omitted since the cell for the consonant assumed to be a combination with ha. There will be no halant before the final consonant. Let us look at an example. Consider the word Priya, which is pronounced with a long a at the end. This has two syllables, Pri and Ya. These cells will be halant, pa, ra, E, Ya, A. Besides the syllables, special symbols are also used. These include modern punctuation marks as well. Let us see about punctuation and other symbols. The idea in Braille is that the visually handicapped person should be able to read text just as a normal person. So, Braille includes all the punctuation marks and other symbols normally seen in printed text. However, since all the text has to be shown only using the 63 cells, certain conventions exist where the interpretation of a given cell may depend on the context. Such specific interpretations are normally effected through specific escape letters. These are the most basic punctuation marks, but there are others such as square brackets, number signs. One observes that the punctuation marks are distinguished by the absence of the dots in the first row. Notice that both the parentheses have the same assignment. From the context, the reader will be able to correctly identify them. It turns out that in Bharati Braille, the punctuation follow the same assignment as in standard English Braille. Next, we will see about special cases requiring specific attention. Symbolic writing systems have their complications as well. Besides, it may be necessary to effect compromises on the assignments of the cell. If a number of additional symbols have to be mapped in a language specific manner, so it is inevitable that when Bharati Braille is read, one must keep in mind that the language. There is room for confusion if multilingual text in Indian languages is printed in Braille unless the person is completely familiar with the meaning of each cell. Let us see about regional Braille. Here we will see about Tamil Braille. Tamil is one of the Dravidian language and it is spoken mainly in Tamil Nadu, and the Tamil people spread across the world. The basic structure of Tamil script is different from Roman script. In particular, Tamil OCR is more complicated than other related works because Tamil letters have more angles and modifiers. Additionally, Tamil script contains large number of character sets. A total of 247 characters consisting of 216 compound characters, 18 consonants, 12 vowels and 1 special character. Challenges that researchers face during recognition process are due to the curves in the characters, number of strokes and bowls, sliding characters. Tamil Braille consists of patterns of embossed dots. Tamil Braille consists of patterns of embossed dots arranged in cells of up to 6 dots in a 3 rows and 2 columns configuration. Each cell represents a letter, numeral or punctuation mark. Some frequently used words and letter combinations also have their own single cell pattern. The first thing is uncontracted or grade 1 Tamil Braille. This is the simplest form which consists of fully split words, punctuation, numbers and composition signs. It is only used by people who are first starting to read Braille. Let us see about grade 1 Tamil Braille. Here we will see about Tamil Braille alphabets. Dot 1 is punctuated for A. Dot 3, 4, 5 is punctuated for A. Likewise, dot 2, 4 is for E. Dot 1, 5 is for A. Dot 3, 5 is for I. Let us see about contracted or grade 2 Braille, which consists of the standard letters of the alphabet, punctuation and contractions. The contractions are employed to save space because a Braille page cannot fit as much text as a standard printed page. Books, signs in public places, menus and most other Braille materials are written in contracted Braille. Braille cell with dot 3, 4, 6 gives abbreviation of the word Inganam, and if precedes with dot 5, it's Anganam. Grade 3 is the next version of grade 2. It is mainly used in personal letters, diaries and notes and also in literature to some extent. Let us see about difference between grade 1 and grade 2 Braille. Grade 1 Braille is a literal 1-to-1 translation of printed letters to Braille symbols. Grade 2 Braille employs a very smart utilization of the symbols and combinations of symbols to represent multiple letters or words. There are only 64 possible configurations of a standard Braille cell, so most symbols are reused in various contexts to have many meanings. This allows grade 2 contracted Braille documents to be much shorter than the uncontracted grade 1 equivalent. Learning to read contracted Braille requires some patience and practice. In the end, the effort is well rewarded. Dear students, let us discuss about contraction and its types. Contractions are one of the most important features of Braille and also the one aspect that creates the largest number of special situations for transcribing Braille. However, Braille cells have a minimum physical size below which they become difficult to read, and this limits a page of Braille to just 25 lines of 40 characters. This means that Braille books can become quite bulky. To try and reduce the size of these books and increase the speed at which Braille can be read, grade 2 or contracted Braille was introduced. A contraction is used to shorten the length of a word. There are several different types of contraction. Let us see about whole word contraction. This may be single cell whole word contraction or multiple cell whole word contraction. A whole word contraction is shortened for a whole word. Whole word symbol can either one cell or a sequence of cells, which can be an abbreviation of a whole word as a single cell contraction or multiple cell contraction. A single cell word contraction is the uses of one cell, either a single letter or a part word letter for entire word. Multiple cell whole word contraction is by an initial letter contraction for a word that is formed by preceding the single cell sign for the initial letter or letters of a word shown in. Dot 1 precedes by dot 5 represents the word Adanal. Dot 345 represents the word Arva. Precedes by dot 5 represents the word Agayal. Dot 3456 represents the word Ani. If the dot 3456 precedes with dot 5, that is represents the word Inai. The next thing is part word contraction. It may be single cell part word contraction or multiple cell part word contraction. A part word contraction is shorthand for a part of a word, not necessarily corresponding to either a diphthong or syllable. The use of certain part word contraction is restricted as to placement at the first, middle or end of the word. Proper use of contractions depends to some extent on syllabication and pronunciation. The single cell part word contraction is. Let us see about single cell part word contraction. If dot 1 at the middle and end of the word, it represents il. If dot 3 at the middle and the end of the word, it represents Likewise, if dot 1 to 4 at the beginning of the word, it represents the pan. If it is at the middle and end, it represents pa. Here we see multiple cell part word contraction. Dot 4 and dot 345 at the end of the word represents avadu. Dot 45 and dot 345 at the middle and end, it represents all. Dot 45 and dot 23456 at the beginning, middle and end of the word represents vida. Here see the picture. Dot 46 and dot 56 at the beginning, middle and end of the word represents pin. To sum up, Braille has been developed as the reading and writing system for the visually impaired. The attention was given on this very difficult to teach a visually impaired people in the early stage. They need more training to learn Braille. Indian language character sets are relatively very complicated when compared to the English, as the elementary character set of all the Indian languages is more than 64. But the need for teaching the visually impaired child to learn Braille of their regional languages, the need of the hour. Learning the regional or mother tongue of the child stimulates his understanding capacity of a child with visual impairment. Hence, the special educator, general teacher and parents should concern in teaching the regional Braille to the visually impaired children. Thank you, students.